All right. Welcome to another new podcast in the very, very, very exciting, growing Yelling Will Ensue family. I am your host for this new podcast, Aaron, as I am the host for many things apparently. I am joined by
Jesus.
my cohort in many of these. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you have listened to our other shows, and this is actually a spin-off of our Nerds Know Sports. And this doesn't mean that we're cutting, Nerds Know Sports completely. This is actually just a more focused show. This is actually specifically about the NBA and basketball, and this is now Nerds Know Sports NBA show, so it's pretty easy to remember. And today we are discussing the top 10 basketball players, NBA basketball players of all time, in our opinion. This is being recorded in the year of 2016, so this may change in the future. This could change, with opinions, whatever, what have you. But this is our list, and these are our picks, and mine kind of feel like they could change depending on how one of these players' careers finish. But outside of one person, everybody else has retired, so we will see what this looks like when one person retires. But my first question for our resident Lakers fan is, how many Lakers players did you put in your top 10?
Four of these players have had played with the Lakers at least one time in their career. So
Okay, that's definitely more than me. How many Celtics?
two.
Okay, so we're roughly the same on that one. And do you still have an active player on your list?
Yes.
Okay, so we probably agree on who that is. All right, so the way this is going to go down,
Stephen Curry.
no. Um, the way this is going to go down is we are going to list our number 10 and move our way up, and then we will have a debate. So I will say who my number 10 is, and then Jesus will say who his number 10 is, and then we'll have a little discussion about that. So without further ado, my number 10 is Akeem Olajuwon.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wilt Chamberlain is your number 10.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's a little lower than I expected, actually. So I guess my question for you is, why is Wilt so low?
I mean, I know Wilt Chamberlain was a dominating force during his day, but I mean, pretty much every single player on this top 10 list dominated the game or changed the way in some shape or form. I mean, so without Wilt Chamberlain, the one thing that he's missing compared to the rest of the players on the list is the accolades. I mean, he's missing some of the accolades that these players have, but I mean, just to be in the top 10, I think is still amazing. I mean, all these players are great. So
Okay, so I guess my question is, the accolade is obviously it's different than stats, right? We're talking hardware. We're not talking like a record.
exactly, hardware, rings, medals, things like that.
Okay. Um. Yeah, because if we're talking strictly stats, Wilt did one thing that no one ever did, which was score 100 points in the game.
Yeah, that
Um.
that that's his thing is he scored a lot of points, grabbed a lot of rebounds. I mean, but to me, especially considering one of these other players that I have on my top 10 pretty much dominated him every time they played, it was kind of hard for me to put him higher.
Well, definitely, yeah. Um. I think my argument is for Wilt a little bit higher, is a lot of people forget he was also a defensive force. He definitely played in a time against an individual who was a far stronger defensive force. But I think that the reason I put like Akeem in the top 10, like I'm actually surprised people even put Akeem in the top 10. Like I feel like people forget he even existed. Back to back championships is a pretty big deal. You could argue, oh, they were in a time where Jordan wasn't there, and to that I say, Akeem beat Patrick Ewing. That's a pretty big deal. That Knicks team was basically primed to usurp the Bulls while Jordan took his time off. I mean, obviously we wouldn't know. We know now that Jordan would come back, but at the time we didn't know, right? So
Yeah, no one knew.
exactly. So we would have assumed that if Jordan was done, that Knicks, Pacers, these other Eastern Conference teams were ready to take their place, but Akeem beat a Patrick Ewing and Starks and all those the '90s Knicks guys, and also he is one of the reasons why Penny and Shaq didn't get theirs. That is one of the great what could have been teams, partially because Penny Hardaway had a horrific injury, and that was very unfortunate, but they still didn't beat anybody in the finals. And Shaq, obviously he went on to win 4 rings, but Penny didn't win anything. And that's one of those teams that what could have been. Like they made a documentary about it, and I don't really think enough people give Akeem credit. And also, this guy is one of the best like offensive defensive combinations. He's fantastic footwork, a great offensive mind. The shake. We're also talking about the only guy in my top 10 that had a quadruple double, and it was possible on multiple occasions. But the reason I list him so low is because I think, in theory, he should have won 3. He should have definitely won another one with Charles Barkley, but he didn't. But we can never take away the fact that he was basically the only all-star on a team that won a championship. So I think definitely he gets points off because of what he could have been.
I can see that. I mean, Hakeem is so good. I mean, players still come to him to this day to go to train. They go every summer. So I mean, Dwight went there, Kobe went there. I mean, there's been plenty of players that go see him every summer to try to work on their game.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a fantastic talent, but I think definitely he got held back by not succeeding as much as he should have. But his greatest claim to fame is nobody ever said the Rockets messed up. They should have drafted MJ. Everybody criticizes the Blazers. Nobody criticizes the Rockets because Akeem is a top 10 player still, and he was what they needed. All right, with that in mind, we will move on to our next one. At number 9, I have Tim Duncan.
My number 9 is really tough because to me, my number 9 and my number 8, you can easily switch back and forth, and there could be a big debate about it. I mean, it's a situation where their careers have been intertwined pretty much since the year 1999 to this year, where their careers were intertwined pretty much as the two dominant forces of the last era of basketball. But I'm gonna put Kobe Bryant at number 9. The Laker fan and me dies doing this, but I'm gonna have to put Kobe at number 9 and the other person ahead of him.
Okay, so full disclosure, I don't even have Kobe in my top 10. So this is where we disagree.
I took someone out of my top 10 that I know for sure now that you have had in your top 10 to put Kobe in there.
Okay. Um. So the reason why I don't put Kobe in my top 10 is because he had very early success, and he was a top 10 player. He was nobody's sidekick on those three-peat Laker teams. You know, he grew into a great player, but he had faltered for so long. And I know your defense. I know your defense. It's the coaching changes, and Tim Duncan had Popovich's entire career versus, you know, Kobe had a lot of changes he had to deal with. But my argument for that is Kobe sent Shaq away, and for the longest time, it was like, can Kobe get it done with the team he wants? And he wasn't even just like, oh, almost there, or oh, if he had just had this person healthy or whatever. Like, we were talking about a Lakers team that was effectively a 7-8 seed, like still making the playoffs, but effectively a bottom feeder. And the reason, I keep him out, like he's probably 11 or 12 in my eyes, is that he needed that Pau Gasol trade more than people think. Like, I definitely feel like that was the change. That once he had Pau Gasol, that's exactly what he needed. Andrew Bynum also happened to develop that year. But Pau Gasol was what put him over the hump versus a guy like Tim Duncan just being on the court, just all these role players, all these like players that are totally I'm talking like you don't remember a lot of these people. Like, I would be shocked if people could tell me all the centers that played alongside Tim Duncan in his championship teams. Okay, like Robinson, that's easy. We're talking like guys like Oberto. You remember Oberto?
Yes, I do, because I used to get him and Louis Scola mixed up.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, the fact that you
Yeah,
even
I
know
know,
who
I get
he
it.
is, right?
Yeah,
Fabricio
but
Oberto, and then
but there's one thing that, yeah, he had a bunch of role players around him, but he had Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili pretty much for the last four championships that he had. So I mean, Tim Duncan was great, but we can't just ignore the fact that he had the same coach his entire career. He had Manu Ginobili and Tony Parker, and those guys are no scrubs. Those are two of the better players at their positions in the league. I mean, Manu Ginobili in his prime, even though he was coming off the bench for them, was arguably the second or third best shooting guard in the NBA. I mean, he played offense, he played defense, he could do everything. He just took
no,
a
he
lesser
didn't
role
play
for that.
defense. He played
He
flop
did.
fence.
That's still defense.
No, it isn't, and
It
I hate
counts.
him for
It counts.
introducing the flop into
It
the
counts.
NBA.
Hey, don't forget Vlade Divac, man. That's the original flop master.
I mean, you bring up Vlad Divac because you're like, he wasn't one of us. He was always a king. But that's an argument for a different time. But okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, Tim Duncan never had to play with Smush Parker
Or Chris Mim.
or Chris Mim or Kwame Brown, but Kobe also put himself in a position where he wasn't he didn't take advantage of the system like we criticize LeBron for. He wanted out, like out. Like, he wanted to chase rings outside of Lakerland. And if he got his way, he would have ended up in a Bulls jersey or a Suns jersey. I can't even imagine that. But the reason why I put Tim above him is I put longevity. Both of them have 5 rings. Kobe has 1 MVP. Not a finals. I'm not counting finals MVPs. I'm talking regular season MVPs. He has less than Steve Nash. He has less than Stephen Curry. He has way less than LeBron.
Well,
He has as
I think there's I mean, we all know that there's an elephant in the room when it comes there because, I mean, Kobe Bryant's image was basically tarnished after the Colorado incident, and the media votes on the MVPs. The media gets to decide that, and no one liked him. People
But
to this day still didn't like him. So, I mean, I, I, I genuinely think that he could have gotten more if his image wouldn't have been destroyed.
I think he could have gotten more if his team with him didn't falter as much as it did. Because, like, this is a true like deciding factor. Like, let's not dance around this idea. Is the regular season MVP is almost always a guy who's on a top two finish team. Always. Like, we're talking when Steve Nash won his back to backs, the Suns were one in, I believe they're two the season, the second season, but he could have gone for three, and then the Mavericks had a better record, so Dirk won one. But what I'm saying is, I feel like Kobe in the playoffs, Kobe was fantastic. In the finals, he was great, but he didn't always get there. You know, it was more like a limp there for a good portion of his prime. Like, I got to give it up to the guy. Those last two rings definitely put him way higher than I would have had him, because if he had just finished with three rings, I think he's a top 20 player. He's not sniffing 15. But being the closer for two of those, I think that he finally, not only did he leave Shaq's shadow, but he finally like put himself back in the conversation for top 10, but I don't have him in my top 10.
I can see that. I mean, like I said, I just feel that even longevity wise, I mean, people just like to say Kobe didn't have a long career because of the last 3 seasons, but before that, he had 17, probably about 17 seasons of really, really good years. I mean, the year he tore his Achilles was he didn't have the athleticism he once had, but statistically, it was the most efficient season he had had in his entire career, and that was at year 17. If he hadn't torn his Achilles, he might have had a full 20-year career where he would have been playing at that level. But I mean, 17 years at that high of a level is something. How many players can say they did that?
I would argue that one of the players, obviously the guy I have at 9, could say that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Um, like, the reason why I put Duncan, and this, like, we have to address the fact that I hate the Spurs. But you know, game recognized game, and they were always the demon in my mind that we could never get past the hump. And Tim Duncan was a huge reason for that. Of course, Mark Stoudemire used to make him look like a chump, but you know, we're not gonna bring up old, you know, memories. But the reason why um, Tim Duncan over a guy like Kobe is, like, I respect Kobe. He played through a lot of injuries. You know, I remember the shooting hand. Like, I think his pinky basically isn't really functional anymore because he didn't get the surgery when it broke like so many years back. And you know, that's really respectable. That's toughness, but like, Duncan always kind of, like, you can say, okay, he had all these players that were really good, but like, Duncan had no right to get his fifth ring. And you know, you can either say it's Kawhi Leonard's coming out party, but Tim Duncan is still a huge reason for why that team won a championship when he was in his late 30s. But you know, we can argue semantics for 5 hours, but we're gonna move on and go on to our number 8. At number 8, I have Wilt.
At number 8, I have Tim Duncan.
Okay, I feel like at some point we're gonna acknowledge who you left off because I think it was Akeem, but I'd be really shocked if you left off my number 7. But um, again, we talked about Wilt, monster, but despite all of his beastly statistics, his accolades were lacking. You could argue that he needed a guy like Jerry West to help him make it. You could also argue that he should have beat the Knicks. If we don't have that miracle, you know, Clyde Frazier walks back onto the court and wins that game, we're talking about,
Willis Reed, cough, cough.
well, hey, you know what? We're talking about dramatic moments, okay? But yeah, whatever. You know what? You go ahead and you tell me why Tim Duncan is higher than I put Tim Duncan.
For a lot of the reasons you said. I mean, I know I was playing devil's advocate with Kobe, but I mean, I do respect Tim Duncan's game. He played 19 seasons, got 5 championships. Him and Kobe Bryant are two that pretty much had the most All NBA defensive teams, All NBA first teams of anyone of all time. So I mean, they're both. Tim Duncan was a monster. I mean, I think Tim Duncan and the 2000 when they beat the Pistons or the Nets in the finals, he averaged like 24 points and 17 rebounds. I mean, there's not many players from probably the 90s on that could do that. I mean, back in the days in the 50s and 60s and stuff, people were putting up numbers like that or even higher. But I mean, in the current NBA, the way it's been, not many players could do that. I mean, there's very, very few that have been able to do that. The longevity, I mean, you got to give Tim Duncan his respect.
Right. Definitely agree. So we'll move on to 7. At 7, I have the Big O, Oscar Robertson.
At 7, I have the Big O's imitator in LeBron James.
Wow. Okay. So the reason why I had to leave out the Big O from top 5 and actually I pushed a few people down, but averaged a triple double. No one can ever take that away from him. Triple double monster. I argue that the guy who looked like his imitator for a long time was Jason Kidd. So let's not, doubt that. But to me, the reason why he's lower now is definitely one championship. And he played with Kareem that year. This guy was a stat nightmare. Okay, and no one can ever take that away from him. But unfortunately, championships do matter, and he has one ring. Yes, it's with the Bucks of all people, but still.
I mean, for me, one of my biggest problems with LeBron is just that his career is still going on. So I don't want to put him too high yet when I don't even know what he's going to finish at. I mean, if he would have lost this championship, I probably wouldn't even have put him this high.
Okay.
But I mean, LeBron James you can't deny the talent. I mean, the first time he went to the championship, even though he got swept, that team had no business being in the championship. I mean, that's something that, I mean, even though he lost, just getting there was an accomplishment because, I mean, he had Sasha Pavlovich and Boobie Gibson and
Larry Hughes.
Larry Hughes, was the other big one.
And Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
That team was just, oh my God. The fact that they got there was amazing. I mean, they just got outmatched by a prime Tim Duncan. I mean, there wasn't many people that were going to beat a prime Tim Duncan, a prime Ginobili, prime Tony Parker. I mean, those players were all at the peak of their game, so LeBron had no chance.
That's
I
true. That's
mean,
true.
I do think he deserves a little. One of the things holding him back still is going to be that Dallas championship where he kind of just disappeared, and I had no idea what happened to him. I know that zone defense really screwed him over. I mean, Rick Carlisle is an amazing coach, and the fact that that zone that they developed was perfect to play against the Heat. So I mean, but still. So I
Okay,
mean,
I'm gonna play devil's advocate with LeBron. Is you know it's his own fault, depending on which side of the argument you are on, that he does not have coaching consistency. But the reason why I put LeBron higher is he is now 3-4 in the finals, and he did something that no one ever did. Came back 31 in the finals.
yeah, this last finals was truly amazing. I mean, what he did to the Warriors is ridiculous. I mean, I said it from the second that I heard Klay Thompson basically say, "I guess we hurt his feelings," that they probably awoke the sleeping beast, because I had no idea what the heck they were thinking when they did that, when he said that. So I just
I
had a feeling that they would at least get at least to game 7. I didn't know if they would win, but I had a feeling that LeBron was going to do something special once he heard that.
right. I think the biggest like problem too was that he is now this version of LeBron is now known for shutting up his haters. Like, you don't poke this version of LeBron. Like, maybe a young Cavaliers LeBron you know, before he left for Miami, maybe. But I don't have the complete list of haters, but here are a few off the top of my head, and hopefully I get this part right. Deshaun Stevenson,
Yep.
shut him up. Lance Stevenson, shut him
Yep.
up. Draymond Green, I'm sorry, buddy, you're on that list too. He shut you up.
Klay Thompson too.
Klay Thompson, he shut you up. I mean, how many more people do we have to say that poke LeBron that shouldn't have? And he shut him up. And I know the haters out there are like, it's the refs. No, you know what? I watched one of the most poorly refed games in last year's finals. Not this most recent one, last year's finals, that the Warriors were a beneficiary of. And
Yeah,
I don't care
it
what
happens.
anybody says.
I mean, the one thing too that I think always will come back for LeBron's legacy is just that how weak the Eastern Conference. I mean, I know that's not his fault, but how weak this Eastern Conference has been for the last pretty much decade at this point. Now.
No, I don't think so. I mean, before he
I mean,
left.
the only year I think where there was a really, really, really tough Eastern Conference was when the MVP year that Derrick Rose had. That was a pretty special Bulls team, but
he beat them. He beat them.
Yeah, he did. That's what I'm saying. That year was that was the year like where he actually had to go through someone that was extremely tough. Cause that team.
What about okay? Look, okay. I understand that he had to go through them, but he did take licks from some pretty good Eastern Conference teams. Like, let's not discount the Celtics that basically ran him off.
To me, the problem with that Celtics team was that they were all already getting old at that point. I mean, he should have beat them with that Heat team. I mean,
No. I'm not talking about the Heat team. No, he made the finals every single year he was on the Heat. He has made the last 6 finals in a row. I'm talking about the last year he was a Cavalier before the decision.
when
In
he
the
got
infamous, he got out. He got. I think he put up like 50 points, but Paul Pierce put up 40, and the Celtics beat him. Basically, you should know that because I believe that was the last year your boy won a championship.
Yep, it was.
But I'm saying, like, when LeBron was growing up before the decision, I could argue the last 6 years have a weak Eastern Conference, but not the last decade, is what I'm saying.
I was over exaggerating, but you get the point I was trying to make. It's just been like it's been a good long time since there was like a crazy good Eastern Conference.
So maybe like the last 5 years.
Yeah, okay, I'll say that. But like at least 5 years, it's been basically no one.
I can agree with that. And you know what? It's not his fault
Yeah, exactly. I
because
said it's not his fault that that's the way the Eastern Conference is built. I mean, this is a bigger problem that I think this is for another day, a topic for another day. But I think that the NBA needs to address this somehow because there are some teams in the middle of the continent of the United States that could potentially be switched around conferences to try to balance it out. But that's a topic for another day.
right. Okay. So we're gonna move on from the LeBron hate. Um, we're gonna go to 6. Number 6, I have Larry Legend, Larry Bird.
Whoa, okay. I have Oscar Robertson, the Big O, at 6.
Okay. Um, we had talked about this a little bit, but the reason why Larry kind of falls is longevity. He didn't have a long career. He had terrible, terrible back problems. Um, Also, LeBron is. If we just took where LeBron is today versus where Larry's career was, um, how many rings did Larry finish with?
3.
How many rings does LeBron have?
3.
How many years has LeBron played? He got drafted in what, 03?
I think
04?
I think Bird played 12 or 13 years, and LeBron's in year 13, I think. So they played about the same amount of years.
And they have the same amount of rings, and LeBron is basically. He sits out games, and people are like, oh, laugh at him because the AC was off. But guess what? He plays those games. He shows up for these rings that he's won, and he is an unquestioned leader, and he is a statistical nightmare, and he is the closest person on this list that could one day catch the greatest of all time. Which is, spoilers for who I have as the greatest of all time. But the reason why I kind of had to put Larry down a little bit is he played at a time where super teams were the norm, and he is the beneficiary of that, not in the sense that he created his super team. He had a great basketball mind in the late great Red Auerbach traded for McHale and Parrish. A lot of people forget this. A lot of people forget that the Warriors used to get abused constantly. And this is one of the terrible, terrible trades that happened.
The Warriors traded so many good players. That's another topic too for another day.
But I basically am saying, look, like he has what he played on a team that had at one point maybe 4 Hall of Famers minus him. Walton, Parrish, McHale, DJ. Like, how many Hall of Famers do you think LeBron has played with? I
2.
would say 2 max. I would say Dwayne Wade.
It's 2. I say 2 for sure.
And he played with Shaq.
No, I'm going to say this. Chris Bosh deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't
Okay,
care
so
what anyone
3.
said. Okay,
So 3.
We'll go 3.
We'll go with 3. I mean, yeah, for a second there, I thought you forgot that he played with Shaq. I was like, really? You're not going to put Shaq in there? He is a Hall of Famer. Like,
I wasn't going to count that because Shaq was at the later
the tail end of his career. Yeah, but I'm saying
So
how many Hall of
count
Famers
that.
did he play with is what I'm saying. Like, it's not like hey, how many Hall of Famers did he play at one time, right? It's how many Hall of Famers did he play with his entire career. But Larry played with more on one team, on 1 year. You know what I mean? That's my argument.
Yeah, I get I get that.
And again, if he had played, I feel like if he had played longer, probably. But one of his biggest issues is I don't put him like he used to be a top 3 easy, but the more I watched basketball, the more I understood it, the more I kind of basically looked into the history of it. is he's not even the greatest Celtic of all time. Unfortunately, he's not. The greatest Celtic of all time is the guy that used to abuse the Lakers constantly, and we'll talk about him later. But
Yeah.
Larry Bird was, he was a great, great player, great shooter. But
Larry Bird, I think just saying a great shooter is just a little bit is an understatement though, because Larry Bird not only was he a great shooter, he was a great defender. He could pass. I mean, if you watch the old highlights, you go back and watch those old Celtics games. I'm a Laker fan, and I will be the first to admit that Larry Bird's vision was pretty much almost on par with Magic Johnson. His passing ability is so underrated, it's ridiculous. I mean, he had the complete game. He just wasn't the flashy showboaty type like some of the Showtime.
Oh no,
Lakers.
he was. He was. He just
not
did
the same way. Not
Yeah.
the same way. They did it in a completely. He would do all those passes, but it was just completely different the way they were.
It was the difference between Showtime and just getting under your nerves time, which is what I would describe those Celtics teams as. Because it's just the way Larry Bird used to play would just get on your nerves. And was it partially because he was a white dude doing things that you thought white guys shouldn't be doing? Yes, come on, man. That guy used to. It was between him and Bill Laimbeer are two of the most annoying white boys in NBA history. But
pretty much.
I digress.
The other thing I got to say about Larry Bird is that he averaged a double-double for his career. I mean, that's something that no one. I mean, if you go into today's current NBA, I mean, I don't even think there's that many players that. Last season, there was 14 players in the entire NBA of 400 players that averaged a double-double.
Right.
Just 14. This guy averaged a double-double for his career.
For his career, yeah.
So, I mean, you got to give him some love.
I give him props. I give him a lot of props. But again, I think before this most recent season, I would not have kicked him out of the top 5. This was a tough decision.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, LeBron beating a 73-win team in the finals after being down 3-1 really did shake up the list. I mean, for a lot of people, because, I mean, you got to give LeBron credit for that.
All right, so do you have anything to say about the Big O?
I mean, to me, the Big O is just I'm not going to take away credit for a championship if it was played with another superstar. I mean, because if I did that, I'd have to do it with pretty much everyone on this list.
Yeah, it's true.
So I mean, that's one of the things I think that gets blown out of proportion by certain people, by the media and fans, is that if you win a championship with another superstar, then it's not worth as much. I mean, Jordan had Pippen, Magic had Kareem and James Worthy. I mean,
no one does it alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. None of these players do it alone.
But he only had one, is my argument.
The thing is, yeah, he got one though. I mean, that's the things he did so consistently for his pretty much his entire career. I mean, there's no player in the NBA right now that could put up the numbers that he did. I mean, LeBron's been the closest. Actually, I would argue that right now Russell Westbrook's been the closest, because Westbrook actually averaged a double-double and was only two rebounds away from averaging a triple-double. So I mean, there's not any player in the NBA that I think currently right now that could consistently do that.
I agree. I feel like we'll have to see what happens with Westbrook this upcoming season, but yeah, I think those two are probably the closest that could ever do it. But again, I don't discount the championship. I just say it's just the one. And yeah, it's a tough situation. This is the top 10. There's only so many people that go around, right? But with him, it's I can't argue him higher just based on how I put some of these guys, but it is what it is. All right, top 5. Finally, we are in our top 5, and finally, I have LeBron as my 5th. No higher.
I have Larry Bird at 5 for me right now.
Okay, so we're about you know, we're about kind of agreeing, but not really at the same time. But yeah, no,
Like,
the reason LeBron is finally better, he's finally the greatest player at his position, is again longevity. Built he whether you agree with it or not, he built himself winners the way he wanted to. Yeah, he got a lot of coaches fired allegedly. But the reason why I have LeBron so high again is he beat a 73 win team that smoked him in the regular season. Smoked him. Absolutely smoked him. Like it was like embarrassing at points. But he beat that team in the finals when he was down 3-1. And he still had to play 2 more games in Oracle, which is like I think only 2 teams beat the Warriors at home during the regular season, and it was not the teams that people thought it'd be. It was the Celtics and the Timberwolves. So it's a tough place to play, and he did it twice on enemy soil in hostile environment. LeBron took a team with Kyrie Irving, who is a great offensive talent but can't play defense really. He took a team with Kevin Love, who can't play defense. Richard Jefferson was starting at some point. J.R. Smith and Mozgov was not even starting. Who was the center?
Tristan
Thompson.
Thompson, yeah.
Thompson, the lob machine. Like, I think we knew we were in for something special in Game 6 when LeBron did his best Magic impersonation and was just going Showtime on the Warriors. And, I can hear the LeBron haters right now. What if we had Draymond in Game 5? What if? We're not playing the games of what ifs.
Yeah,
We're playing the games of what happened.
Exactly. I mean, one of the problems is that may have changed the outcome. I mean, I do think it would have, but I mean, it doesn't matter because it's Draymond's fault that he put himself and his team in that position, and that's how the rules of basketball work. He screwed up, and that team had to accept the consequences. I mean, it's not LeBron's fault that happened, even though some people would argue that he goaded him into it. But I mean, that doesn't matter. The fact is Draymond was an idiot.
Well, so I'm sorry. Continue.
I'm saying he was an idiot. I mean, if he wouldn't have reacted that way, then his team would have gotten that opportunity to try to close it out with him. But he decided to be a knucklehead, and that. I say this. I mean, I don't think it was the reason why they won. I think it did give them confidence, though. It did give the Cavs a lot of confidence when they won that Game 5 to go into win the next 2 games. I mean, they just got going. Kyrie Irving just lit it up, and once you know how players in the NBA are, once they get a rhythm going, if they can continue that rhythm, it's not going to stop. I mean, and that's what happened. Kyrie Irving and LeBron just had tremendous last probably 4 games. Kyrie Irving did things that I had never seen him do before, and it was special that last 4 games.
I think it was the last 3 games because they lost Game 4, but Game 5, LeBron and Kyrie both had 40-plus point games, and that was like when you saw that Game 5, you're like, if that's what it's going to take for this Cavs team to win, it's not happening, right? Like 2 guys have to average 40-plus for 2 more games. Another one in Oracle. Like that only obviously that we felt like that would only happen once, right? That was like the shot in the dark, like you cornered the Cavs and they had to fight back. But then they go on to Game 6 and they just blew them up. And people can argue about the whole Draymond thing. I argue that the Draymond suspension was more of a like, hey, you know what? We let you slide with the Thunder stuff, but this is too blatant. Like, we're gonna have to suspend you for this one. So, like, the crime at the time wasn't enough for a suspension, but it was more like a, hey, dude, like, you know what? Like, it caught up to you. But that's neither here nor there. But after Game 6, after that blowout, Game 7 was like, okay, you know what? Like, enough is enough. It's time for Steph to show up. But to me, the biggest fall for that team was Bogut going down. I honestly don't know what people are thinking because Bogut is a huge freaking deal, and we will see what happens in the future. But that's neither here nor there. That's for another day. But again, LeBron, that block, man, like that Cavs, not only that block, but that Cavs team made that Warriors team that was an offensive juggernaut play ugly ball for what 4 minutes in Game 7, the
Yeah, it was like
last
I
most
think it was the last
important.
3 or 4 minutes that the Warriors just could not get a bucket, no
They
matter what
could
they
not
did.
buy a bucket. And you know what? The irony was they turned into like the Cavaliers. And you know what? I'm gonna give the credit to LeBron. Look, like they made that team turn into hero ball, and it crushed them in the end. But again, look, yeah, did he have to build his own super team? You know what? Yeah, he did. And so what? That super team got it done. They got it done against Kevin Durant, and they got it done against Tim Duncan. They got the revenge for,
I mean,
that first time. And yeah,
yeah,
okay, now he's 1-2 all time against Tim Duncan and the Spurs, but you know what? He still won that second one. That was a pretty big deal, those back to backs. And then he won the even more important one in Cleveland. And he's got 4 MVPs, and he's basically always been an all star, and not like an all star like Kobe, where it's a lot more votes. But sometimes you're like, I don't know if Kobe should have started that one. But LeBron, you're always like, yeah, he should start these games, and he should be the top vote getter. And guess what? He is still right now. After people said, "Oh my God, this we're seeing the new NBA. We're seeing the new greatest of all time in Stephen Curry. We're seeing a guy who's done things in this NBA that we've never seen before." And guess what? He said, he being LeBron is like, you know what? You're going to see something that no one has ever seen. You're going to see a guy blow a 3-1 lead in the finals. And he made it happen. And that's why he's my number 5.
yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, like I said, LeBron deserves as much credit as anyone else on this list. I mean, the things he's done throughout his career, from like I said, even though he got swept in his first championship, the fact that he got that team there was an accomplishment in itself. I mean, you can't fault him for the super team in Miami. I mean, I think a lot of the reasons why he got so much flack for that was just because of the decision and how he did it. I mean, making an hour long special on ESPN, I think, is kind of what soured a lot of fans on him. But I mean, the fact is that it's not like that was the first super team ever. I mean, there'd been plenty of super teams throughout NBA history. And even though that was a super team, and it's not like that they just blew by everyone. I mean, they won 2 championships, but they also lost two too. So I mean, there's a lot more into it than just that. And he deserves a lot of credit for everything that he's done. I mean, the stats are unbelievable. The accolades, he has gold medals, he has MVPs, he has Finals MVPs. I mean, he has a lot. So he deserves a lot of credit. And if I would not fault anyone for putting him in their top 5.
All right, so now we're moving on to our top 4. Number 4, I have the greatest Celtic of all time, Bill Russell.
Hey, one we agree on.
Oh, okay. Um, I think nobody won as many rings as he did. Well, nobody that was not on his team, obviously. But my biggest, I guess, fault for Bill and why he isn't in my top 3 is he is arguably the greatest defensive player of all time, but his offense was not on par. Like,
Not even close.
not even close. Like, if he had put up like offensive numbers like Wilt, there's no discussion, man. This guy is the greatest of all time, right? Like, but
Most definitely, yeah. If he would have put up those offensive numbers like Wilt, then I mean, I don't think there's any like you couldn't deny him the fact that he'd be the greatest player ever.
Exactly. 11 rings. 11 rings. He is the
Most of
reason
them
why.
coming against my Lakers.
Exactly. And he's the reason why guys like Elgin Baylor don't have a ring. He's the reason why Will Chamberlain doesn't have more rings. Jerry West
Jerry
has one
West.
ring. Um, he's the reason why Jerry West is known as, like one of the greatest of all time. Like if it wasn't for him, Jerry West is probably in my top 10. But he
Very true.
abused those Lakers. He abused them like no one ever did. Like he birthed that rivalry himself.
And I mean, to be
And
truly
I
fair
get
to him and the Celtics, and this is coming from a Lakers fan, there was no rivalry back then because we didn't
it
beat
was
them.
so one sided.
Yeah, exactly. A rivalry would kind of insinuate that both sides can pull it out, but it wasn't. That wasn't the case.
I mean,
They
he's like
destroyed us.
he's like the big brother. It's like a sibling rivalry, but your brother has like a full foot over you, is a whole 5 years older than you, can lift like twice as much as you, and you wanna get in a fist fight with this guy. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those rivalries, quote unquote, until two of these guys in my top three kind of took it back. But like these two guys were the growth spurt for the Lakers. They're like, you know what, enough is enough. We're fighting back, but still, like, again, the only thing that was holding him back was probably the offensive numbers, because we also need to acknowledge he was a player coach. That in and of itself is ridiculous. Um,
Yeah,
he was always a winner. I don't really want to bring up like things that happen in college for a lot of these guys, because college doesn't always translate to talent in the NBA. But um, you're never going to take away the fact that this guy won how many straight, like 7, 8 in a row.
I think it was.
He,
I think
I,
it's 8. Yeah.
and then what? He took 1 year or 2 years off, and then he won again. Like, come on, man. This guy was very talented. And I know what you're gonna say, people. Who was his point guard, though? What about Jones, though?
Yeah.
What about all these other great Celtics, though? And it's like, you know what? I admit it. Those were pretty good players. I'm not criticizing Kuzi. I'm not criticizing Jones. Both of them. I'm not criticizing a guy like Havlicek. But you know what? It's not like the Lakers had scrubs on their team, right?
That Lakers team was so stacked that it was ridiculous. I mean, Elgin Baylor scored 71 points in a game, so you can't tell me that boy couldn't play.
Elgin Baylor, Gail Goodrich.
Gail
We
Goodrich
remember you.
is the
We remember you, Gail.
forgotten Laker player, but that he could play too. That boy could play. Jerry West was ridiculously good. I mean, he's the logo for a reason. So I mean, that Lakers team was as stacked as possible. They
And
got
Wilt the
Wilt
Stilt.
eventually. Yeah. So I mean, it's just like that team was so stacked that it should have beaten that Celtics team, but they could
It
not
didn't
get it
because of
done.
this one guy. Definitely because of this one guy. Because, we don't have. I don't have any of his cohorts in this top 10. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't think anybody in the world has any of his people in the top 10. And that's no diss on them. They are still top 50 players of all time. But he was far, like, head and shoulders above everybody else. But enough of the praise for one of Jesus' most hated players.
Yeah, I can't say the things I say about him off the air, on the air. So Aaron knows what I would normally say in this situation, but unfortunately, that'll be for off the air stuff.
Okay, but now we're on to number 3. I feel like we probably agreed on number 3, and I had Magic.
You're correct. We did agree on number 3.
Okay, I feel
I
like
mean,
we're getting closer.
I think our top 4 is probably the same. But I'm going to say this: but Magic was one of the greatest players to ever play the game. I mean, we'll never see, probably never see another player like Magic Johnson. I mean, 6'9", playing point guard, running the court. the court vision that you have at 6'9" is so much better than you have at 6'3" or 6'2". You can see over people. You can post up the smaller guards. I mean, there's so many things that you can do that just don't happen anymore. I mean, we're getting to a point where there are big men that are coming in more skilled with things like this, but I mean, I don't think any of them will ever be able to do it like Magic did.
Well, we're not gonna.
Five championships. I mean, 9 appearances. I mean, think about this. He only played 12 seasons and went to 9 championships.
Yep.
That's as ridiculous as it gets. I mean, and the people he lost to weren't bad teams.
Scrubs.
I mean, lost to the bad boy Pistons.
MJ.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he lost to these terrible
the Celtics.
teams.
Yeah, those were the ones. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I was going to say, it's not like we're going to see Dragon Bender out there, playing point anytime soon, but, like, another thing we got to give credit to for Magic is he could play every position, basically. It's like if Ben Simmons...
Not basically, he did do it.
He did, but that's what I'm saying. It's like if Ben Simmons does it, you know what? God bless that guy, but Magic did it before him, like his rookie year he played center in the finals,
and won Finals MVP.
Like, what is that all about, man? Like, this guy is one of the greatest of all time. And again, the only thing keeping him back is 12 seasons. That's the only thing that's keeping him back. If he played maybe 4 or 5 more seasons, he's. I mean, it's still a hard argument, right? Like, because the other two, it's like,
if he was able to play like into the mid 90s, I think he would have had a chance to win another championship. And if he could have done that, the discussion to get into the top 2, maybe even the top position, definitely would be there. But just the fact that his career had to end so abruptly due to a lot of misinformation about HIV and AIDS in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, had there been better information about the disease and stuff back then, I think his career would have he could have kept playing for a while. But you know how it was back then. I mean, everyone was scared and no one really knew what to think of it. So
yeah, and not only that, but we can say without a shadow of a doubt he still played at a pretty good level because of the Dream Team. In '92, because
he was good.
Yeah, and that was after he retired. Like, let's not forget that. But yeah, the Dream Team is something that is a once in a lifetime, and you know what? We'll probably have a debate on whether or not any team could have ever beaten the Dream Team, and by any team I mean any of these other Olympic teams that think they could beat the Dream Team. But that's for a different time. But we could talk about how much we love Magic. He's the greatest point guard of all time. No argument there. Top 2 guard of all time.
Yeah, I mean, he has to be a top 2 just guard in general of all time. I mean, there's only one other guard that in NBA history that I think that was better. I mean, I think we both would agree on that person, but
right. But a guy just he did things that were unbelievable, and there's always this thing that Jesus loves to bring up is that he and Kobe Bryant have what against the Celtics in the finals?
They both beat the Celtics in the finals, which is something that, for a Laker fan, that is something that will always hold a special place in my heart. Beating the Celtics in the finals, because for so many years, Bill Russell destroyed the team. And the one year that Bill Russell should have lost, the Lakers were stupid and left out plans for their Game 7 celebration after the game. And Bill Russell saw that and balloons up in the rafters and said, you know what, screw this, we're not losing. It destroyed my team.
And let's also not forget about the magic that is Don Nelson. That happened.
Don't stop.
I like how he pretends that we were alive then, like we were born into a situation where that already happened. But yeah, that happened. But yeah, are they? I thought what he was going to say is they don't have losing records against the Celtics in the finals, but yeah, they did both
Yeah,
beat the
we both
Celtics,
beat.
and
Yeah, I know. I would say no, they don't have losing records against the Celtics, but I mean, the fact that they beat them to me is more important at this point.
okay. All right, number 2, I have Kareem.
You mean you don't have Michael Jordan?
I do not
No,
have Michael Jordan at number
okay.
2.
I'm joking, but yeah, I have
Yeah,
Kareem
okay.
too as well. I have Kareem as well. Though I do think that the debate there should. I'm not saying that Kareem is the greatest of all time because I don't think he is, but I do think that there should be at least be a debate because Kareem's career is just it. It's unbelievable. All the accolades, everything that he did, the numbers, the accolades, everything.
Yes.
But that's a debate for another day.
I think the reason why these two could be a 1A 1B conversation. You know, they're both number 1s, but one is still like a little higher is like Kareem to me was basically like, okay, so everything people say about winning in Cleveland, like, come on, like winning in Milwaukee in basketball. I mean, like, are we gonna be for real for a second here? Are we gonna be for real?
Milwaukee. When was the last time people saw a good Milwaukee Bucks team that was a title contender? When?
The '80s?
Exactly.
Like,
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
when's the last time we feared the deer? Like, when's the last time we really feared the deer? Like, let's be real, people. Okay, it was when Kareem and the Big O were on the same team. You can make an argument that you can't. You know what I'm gonna say? You can't. Like, if Jabari Parker, if the Greek Freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I don't even remember who else is on the Bucks right now. If those guys
Thon
even
Maker.
sniffed, Thon Maker, half of the talent of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you still would not fear the deer. Okay, if all of them combined had the talent of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you still would not fear the deer. Okay, because look, okay, so everything we said about Bill Russell abusing Wilt, guess what? You know, like there's a great quote that I'm probably gonna butcher, but I think when they asked Bill Russell, did he get lucky by avoiding Kareem? And Bill Russell said, "You have that backwards." You know, Kareem got lucky that he avoided me, but you know, we're never gonna know if that ever is gonna happen. But he did play against Wilt. He did play against Wilt, and you know what? He looked better than Wilt out there. Like, look, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was just a winner at every single thing. He had one of the most unguardable moves in NBA history.
I'm gonna say it's not one of the most. It is the most unguardable thing because that worked for 20 years, 20 seasons, with no one figuring it out.
I mean, how do you figure that out? Like if you think about it, like that was like a hook shot is already a difficult thing for a lot of NBA players to even master, let alone that is your go-to and you're also over 7 feet tall.
His regular jump shot was a hook shot, basically. Like he was taking hook shots from 20 feet out.
I know, and he was making them, and you know what? That's maybe that's the UCLA in him, but that guy was a winner at every single level. Like the reason why I don't put him higher is he scored more buckets than our number 1. He's the greatest scorer of all time. Like statistically speaking, he's the greatest scorer of all time. I kind of feel like if I got fed the ball by a guy like Magic Johnson, I probably could have scored a couple buckets myself. But
all right,
that's neither here nor there.
Let's just go with Kareem stats, though. I mean, 6 championships, 6 MVPs,
6 MVPs, most MVPs of
19,
all time.
19 All-Star games,
Yep.
15 All-NBA teams,
Uh huh.
11 All-NBA defensive teams,
Uh huh.
38,387 points,
Which is the
shot
most of all time.
55.9% from the field, 17,440 rebounds,
Uh huh.
5,660 assists, 3,189 blocks, and 1,160 steals. I mean, that that's scary. Like, who does that?
Yeah, and I think the only thing that would probably hold him back a little bit is that later in his career, it's pretty much you have to admit it was Magic's team. But
Yeah, it was for the last few. Yeah, it was.
like so, you can make that argument. It's like, okay, those were more Magic's rings than Kareem's rings. But guess what? Laker fans don't care. You know what I mean? It's like, are these Shaq's rings or Kobe's rings, right? It don't matter. It's the rings, right?
Yep.
Am I right,
It's
Laker
just a
fan?
ring. It's just the rings.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
doesn't matter whose rings they were. They're both their rings.
I mean,
But
with Kareem, I mean, Kareem was just a special player. I mean, there's pretty much nothing else you really can say. It's just that he was a special player, a player that we'll never see another player like Kareem because they just don't make them like that anymore.
they really don't. Just wasn't just like he wasn't just like a force of nature on the court. Like he got in your mind, you know what I mean? Like he knew what you were thinking and he out thought you. And that's what makes him one of the and he's a great basketball mind. He's one of the reasons why Dwight Howard got chumped in the finals too, because he knew Dwight did not have a great offensive game and he helped those Lakers teams exploit that, or that Laker team specifically. And yeah, people still train with this guy, like what we said with Akeem Olajuwon. But anyways,
And and I would like to
oh,
point out that Kareem trained with Bruce Lee. So I mean, you train with Bruce Lee, you're always cool in my book.
he was also in Airplane.
Oh God.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but
one last thing for me too is that I think part of the reason why a lot of people don't give Kareem as much respect as I think he deserves is as a lot of people don't know that he won a championship with the Bucks. Like everyone just a lot of people even forget that he played for the Bucks. They just see
I
him in a
know
Lakers jersey. So I think that's part of the reason why he doesn't always get the respect that he deserves. I mean, people just see him winning 5 championships, and like you said, the last few seasons that Kareem played, it was pretty obvious that Magic Johnson was the leader of that team.
yeah.
So I mean, they just see that, but I mean, they forget about those Buck years where he won a championship and he was a monster with the Bucks, like a monster.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like he won his rookie year. And he didn't just win it. He was the reason they won it. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big deal.
Yep.
All right, so our number 1 is, to the shock of nobody,
Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry, guys.
no, we're talking about another North Carolina boy. We're talking about,
Wardell.
yes, Wardell. Dell Curry is number. No, we're talking about MJ, his airness, the man who saved the planet from those aliens from Moron Mountain. We're talking about Michael
Yeah.
Jordan, of course. Come on, guys. I For a while, I kind of had Kareem a little bit higher than MJ, but there are just some things you just can't ignore. Greatest team of all time. He got it. Yeah, okay. The Warriors won one more game than him in the regular season, but I don't see no ring.
Yeah. If the Warriors had won the championship, then you could have had a debate. But I mean, they didn't, so there is no debate. That Bulls team was the greatest team of all time.
Right. let's see, 2 3-peats. He did that.
The second coming after he had been in retirement. I mean,
Yes, exactly. Like, think about that. That's ridiculous. I know what people would say. Oh, he had Dennis Rodman. That's for that second coming. I was like, well, do you remember who he had before Dennis Rodman? Yeah, he had Scottie Pippen, but do you remember those other guys' names? I do. I remember Horace Grant. I remember a guy like B.J. Armstrong.
BJ Armstrong was cool.
I, like, this is how great of a player he is. Is there was a team with Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, which is he's no slack. Scottie Pippen, and Steve Kerr wasn't even the starting point guard, and everyone remembers Steve Kerr for some reason. Nothing against Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr was a fantastic player, but Steve Kerr wasn't, like an all-star or a Hall of Famer or anything. But
Don't forget about Ron Harper. That boy.
But
Was
that's what I'm
good.
saying. People forget about Ron Harper. Like, if you look at those Bull teams, like the highlights and like the images, Steve Kerr is one of those images, but not Ron Harper. Like, how crazy is that?
I think part of the reason is just because one, the shot, and then two is just that. I mean, Steve Kerr kind of stuck around the NBA a bit. First, he did commentating on games. He was a GM, so I mean, he kind of stayed around the game. So I think that's
He's
part
a
of the
coach
reason.
now.
Yeah, he's a coach. So I mean, he's just been
But don't
around
they
the
have
NBA.
but don't they have the same amount of rings? Doesn't Ron Harper have 2 with your boys, 3 with the Bulls?
Yeah, he does.
And Steve Kerr had 3 with the Bulls and 2 with the Spurs.
Yep.
But, what I'm saying is, this is how you know you're the greatest of all time. Who did he prevent from having rings? It's the
So
who's
many
who.
players. I mean, so many players. Patrick Ewing didn't get a ring. Charles Barkley didn't get a ring. John Stockton and Karl Malone didn't get rings. He
Gary
almost
Payton.
stopped Gary Payton.
Yeah, but, Gary Payton, yeah, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp as a unit got stopped.
Yeah, the good old days of Gary Payton. Gary Payton kind of went ring chasing his last few years, but that's
You
a
know what?
different
It's not
story.
his fault. It's not
No,
his
I
fault.
don't blame him. He needed it. He deserved
Exactly.
it.
He deserved to win. Um, like, probably one of the greatest Supersonics teams we'd ever seen got stopped. Not even one of. That's probably the greatest Supersonics team we ever saw. That's probably arguably one of the greatest Western Conference teams we ever saw. He stopped the Jazz twice. Twice. Like, a guy like probably one of the greatest point guards. He's top 3 in my opinion in Stockton, and probably top 2 for power forwards in Karl Malone, and they're both on the same team, and they both got just beat out by one man essentially. Okay, it's a team sport, but most people say it was Jordan.
That's the other thing with Jordan too, is that Jordan became such a legend in basketball. I mean, so much of a legend that that a lot of people forget or discredit some of his teammates. I mean, that he transcended basketball. I mean, you ask a lot of fans today who was on those teams. I mean, of course, everyone's going to know Scottie Pippen, but they completely forget about some of those other players just because that's just how Jordan was. I mean, he became like I said, a legend basically, like almost a myth, a mythical creature in basketball.
Yeah, and
Because I mean, like Ron Harper, for example, like you said, people forget about Ron Harper, and Ron Harper used to average 20 points a game when he played with Cleveland. People forget, like he was actually a really good player, but
right.
nobody remembers him.
They don't, because like the legend of Jordan was much stronger. And again, Akeem Olajuwon wouldn't have won if you can make the argument that Akeem Olajuwon would have never won a single ring if Jordan had kept playing. He had never taken the break.
Exactly. You could argue that Jordan would have 8 straight championships if he didn't retire. Could you?
Yeah, we don't know. Like we will never know. But he was always the best player on his team. Always.
Always the best player on his team, and then in the '90s, he was always the best player in the league. I mean, who else could come retire for a season, come back halfway through the next season, and still be the best player in the NBA? Who could do that? I mean, LeBron. I don't think LeBron could do that. I don't think.
I don't think LeBron could do that. I don't think
I
Kobe
don't.
could do that. I don't
Yeah,
think
exactly.
Kareem could do that.
I don't think any of them could do that. Could just retire, and then, especially because he had already been in the league for a while, been like 10 years. So, and then he just retired and came back and still was the best player.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even close. He was still just the best player. They dominated again.
Um, and he kind of like started a trend where, in the modern NBA, big men are kind of they were no longer the big ticket, the big reason they want. I mean, looking at my list alone, I count half of it is big men in my top 10. Like 6 if you want to throw Magic in there.
Are you counting Magic and LeBron?
No, no, no. I'm counting Akeem Olajuwon, Tim Duncan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, and Will Chamberlain. 5 big men. 5. Okay. If we count LeBron and Magic and Oscar, that's 8, right? Like, but what I'm saying is, like, the modern NBA, who is the best center right now? Who?
I mean, honestly,
That's an
I
honest question.
honestly right now that's tough to say because I mean, if you count Anthony Davis as a center, which I don't, I would say it.
I
But Carl
don't
Anthony
either.
Towns honestly looks like he's the best center in the NBA. I'm just going to say that, and he's a rookie.
I think it's between him and maybe DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah, actually, no, yeah, that's right. I just like the problem with Demarcus Cousins is just that he's on a terrible team too, and his attitude. But I mean, yeah, skill set wise, Demarcus Cousins is by far the best. But I would rather have Carl Anthony Towns.
Well, we will see in the future, but yeah, what I'm saying is it used to be a game dominated by big men, and nobody can name the centers on like those Bulls teams. Most people, I would argue, most people probably don't even like if we showed them a picture of what the big men on the Bulls teams look like.
Luke
You
Longley, no one
probably
would.
gonna get Dennis Rodman.
Yep.
You might get Tony Kukoc. I don't know. Maybe. I think that's a stretch. Horace Grant is like a who? Like
The
honestly,
goggles.
but yeah, but what I'm saying is like you can like remember like the Lakers are well known for their big men. Like Shaq almost brought it back himself, and Tim Duncan. But after that, like what is the NBA dominated by now? Guards and wings.
Point guard specifically right now, like this is like this almost every team has a good point guard. It's kind of ridiculous.
And Jordan was kind of like my argument is Jordan was kind of the reason for for guards kind of being more important now, like because a lot of these guys are of the right age to have watched Jordan or Allen Iverson or Kobe Bryant at these guards that kind of took the NBA by storm. Like nowadays, again, we cannot really argue. I think I can probably name like 5 big men that I would say are very good, if not some of the best in the NBA. But you can name wings and guards like it's nobody's business. It's really easy, and MJ was a huge reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely ushered in the last era of basketball from the '90s up until maybe last year, and even this year. most teams are following that. I mean, it feels like the NBA was trying to change, or like they were trying to force a change in the NBA this year. But we'll see how it goes this coming season. If the trend still stays, or if it goes, because I felt that the Warriors won the championship, and a lot of teams are going to try to build a Warriors like team. But since they lost, I'm not sure what to expect from the NBA play style wise now.
I think the last two like championships and like the LeBron won championships were not won by big men. They were helped by big men, but they weren't led by big men.
It was a guard and
The
it was a
last
guard and a wing.
it was a guard or a wing. The last championship before this most recent one, won by guards. You could make an argument that a wing was the hugest reason. He was the MVP for the Spurs team. So that's another one. I would say the last time a big man was the deciding factor probably was Dirk in 2011.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Where Dirk pretty much just was the catalyst for that team. He kept everything going. He was that reason. I mean, offensively, it's not like they had much else besides him. So
But you know what I mean. Like it's we're watching kind of like this transition from like great big men to solid big men and emphasis on the guard play, and that's really something that happened a lot more because of a guy like Michael Jordan. Because like I would argue if Kareem is the greatest of all time, we would see more centers like Carl Anthony Towns or DeMarcus Cousins or who. Like I don't I don't have an answer for you. Like
yeah, it's true. I mean, I think, like I said, part of the reason is because Jordan transcended basketball. I mean, the commercials, the movie. I mean, there's the shoes. Everything about Jordan just transcended basketball, and I think that's part of why all this is happening like this is that everyone wanted to be like Mike. I mean, it's much easier for a kid growing up to say I want to be like Mike because kids realistically have a more chance to be 6'5" than they do 6'6" than they do to be 7'2". So I mean,
exactly.
so it was a person that was more easier to relate to. They were everywhere because they were on McDonald's commercials, Gatorade commercials. He had a movie with Looney Tunes. I mean, it was
In a
just
movie called Like Mike.
yeah. I mean, everything. It just was. I remember as a kid, just it was almost like it was shoved in my face at all times because I always saw Jordan on TV with commercials for everything. The movie was one of my favorite movies growing up. I Even though I never got a pair, I always wanted a pair of Jordans when I was a kid. I didn't get them until I was a lot older, but I mean, I always wanted a pair. So I mean, it was just one of those things where everyone wanted to be like Mike.
Yeah. And I definitely agree with the whole statement that you are more likely to be like 6 plus, like barely plus, with a skill set like Michael Jordan than you are to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's height. Period. You know what I mean? Like it's it's just he's the greatest of all time. Like he put the Bulls on the map. The Bulls have 6 championships. It's all because
Yeah,
of him.
he did. He put the Bulls on the map. They're a team that everybody knows now. I mean, the funny thing is that they should have always been on the map because that's a huge market. But it was like until MJ was there. I mean, the Bulls were an afterthought in the NBA because it was always just the Lakers, the Celtics, the Sixers, or even back in the day, the Knicks.
The Pistons.
Yeah, exactly. The Pistons too. I mean, he put a whole team on the forefront of the NBA just by being him.
Yeah, I mean, what else can we say? What else can we say? All right, well, that is our top 10. Well, thank you guys for actually before we wrap up, I just want to say I'm curious on for Jesus. Do you have like five people who barely missed your top 10?
Oh, yeah, Hakeem for sure was one that I debated about putting in there just because he's such a good player. The back to back championships. I mean, I really wanted him in there, but then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to put him in here. So for sure, Hakeem. Uh, Aside from that, it wasn't really like I didn't have too tough of a time picking these players. I mean, for the most part, we only had one player on each other's list that weren't on the others.
Yeah.
So I mean, it seemed like we pretty much all had we both had the same idea of who to put. I mean, because the problem was is that all the '90s era, the Jordan era players, none of them beat Jordan, so I couldn't put any. I didn't feel like I could put any of them in there, so I didn't even think about it. I mean, some of the players. I mean, other than that, I mean, I can't think of anyone else besides the Jordan era players like Charles Barkley or anyone or people like that. But like I said, I didn't even think about putting them. But those are the other players that'd probably be out on the top.
I think for me, it would have been Kobe, Shaq, Jerry West, probably Carl Malone, and yeah, maybe Stockton or like
Yeah, I could see
barely.
that. Like I said, those Jordan era players, it was just really tough for me to even consider them because it was like they didn't beat Jordan. I mean, I know that's not their fault because they couldn't beat the top player of all time, but it was just like I have a hard
Well,
time wanting to put them in there. And then with like Shaq to me, the problem with him was that even though he got 4 championships and was one of my favorite players growing up, it was just he didn't. The one thing that I think all the players that I put in the top 10 had in common was they all had extremely good work ethics. They all tried as hard as they could. And with Shaq, to me, part of the problem with him was that it was pretty obvious that he didn't really care about about practicing or working out and stuff like that. Because I just feel like Shaq, as dominant as he was, still could have been better
yeah,
if he had Kobe's work ethic. He this would have been a different story. I mean, that
if
was my problem with Shaq. Was I mean, as dominant as Shaq was, as good as Shaq is, I just didn't feel like I could put a player that I felt underachieved.
yeah, for sure. I think if Shaq had Kobe's work ethic, he probably could have been better than Kareem. He was just that dominant. Yeah, he had a terrible free throw. Let's be honest, but I mean, we're talking about a guy who you can kind of remember him as like kind of a fatter guy, but when he came out of college, that dude was Dwight Howard like on like exponential levels. Like throwing down, breaking rims, throwing down, like disrespecting guys basically. That guy was a force of nature, but he didn't care enough, and he had a chance to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest center of all time, but he faltered. He wasted it. He was like Wilt Chamberlain in an era where like people can argue Wilt kind of like didn't kind of dominated at the right time, but Shaq dominated at a time where people were like, okay, you know what, like he is just this dominant. And again, yeah, he wasted his opportunity to be the greatest of all time. And watching him growing up, I was like, yeah, this is one of the greatest of all time. But that second half, basically after the championship in Miami, he digressed, or he just not digressed. He went backwards so much. He stopped caring. And I wanted him to win a championship for the Suns, but guess what? He wasn't the same Shaq, and he definitely wasn't the same Shaq after he left the Suns. Like that Cleveland Shaq wasn't right, and then definitely not that Celtics Shaq. Like this is a guy who became a journeyman almost by his own like lack of effort. His work ethic kind of got him in the end. But you know what? he is still one of the greatest of all times, and
Oh yeah,
you know,
definitely. He's definitely right outside the top 10. I mean, I like I said, I just couldn't put a player in that I felt underachieved because I still feel that way as a Laker fan. That even though Shaq did so much for our team, that if his work if his ethic was better, the Shaq and Kobe feud probably never would have happened. Because that was the biggest thing that got on Kobe's nerves was just that Shaq was too playful, and
yeah, I definitely agree.
that could have changed so much for the city, for the team. I mean, it could have changed so much for Shaq's career, for Kobe's career. It just would have been way different, and I just like I said, I just couldn't put him in there because of that.
And also, we cannot put a player in the top 10 that lost to Aaron Carter in basketball.
Yeah, people don't forget.
Until, and that was a Lakers Shaq too. That was him in his prime. Yeah, Aaron Carter has, not been as good as he was in the retrospect, but prime Shaq lost to prime Aaron Carter.
Very true. But Shaq, I'll give you shout outs because I love you and we got to. We're not trying to disrespect you. We just got to keep it real.
You know what? I enjoyed Kazam. I was the right age to enjoy that movie.
I think everyone enjoyed Kazam. That movie was great.
Not everyone, man. Not everyone. All right. Anyways, all right. Let's wrap this up. Thank you all for listening to our first NBA show. We will be working on a preview for the upcoming 2016-2017 NBA season. We will also be working on little in-between episodes where we kind of talk about a topic and roll with it. We will probably also be having similar style debate episodes. I think the first one's probably going to be about the Warriors versus the Bulls. We will. I like the idea of kind of like taking a step back and jumping in a time machine and kind of talking about how this current NBA climate is not indicative of NBA history. Okay, the Warriors, despite having 4 rings, are not a have. They were for the longest time a have not. Do we agree on that?
Of course. I mean, I think even though they do have 4 rings, I mean, I can guarantee you that most NBA fans outside of the Bay Area probably didn't even know they had 4.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I see those like championship shirts, and you know what? I would be shocked if people even remember who Rick Barry is. And guess what? He was one of the greatest shooters of all time. But anyways, that's what we kind of have planned in the future. Again, thank you for listening. As always, like, comment, subscribe. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at AA Landline, LANLINE. Jesus is
At Juicer5024.
I wonder what the 24 means. You
Just
could also
because it's not because my actual jersey number in high school was 24. So,
Yeah, it's not because of Kobe. Okay. You can also follow us at Nerds No Sports, at Yelling Will Ensue, and at Let's Argue Anime. Those will most likely be in the description, so they're easier to access. Again, thank you. I want to thank Jesus for another show we're on. Jesus is just so excited he has nothing to say about that. But again, thank you, and we're going to wrap this up, I swear, and we will catch you all later. Bye.